What's up, everyone? James Lott here, aka JT, and this is another Free Tip Friday. So today's tip has to do with closing costs. Now, I did go over closing costs in detail a few Free Tip Fridays ago. I believe it might have been like 12 or 13. But anyway, just go back out and get more detail about it. But today's tip, I really want to go into how to make sure as a buyer that you have a seller at least contribute to some of your closing costs, because that is a possibility that when you're buying a home, that a seller is going to be willing to maybe not cover all of it, but some of your closing costs. Now, just for a quick review, closing costs are any money that it takes for you to close on a property. So that includes your loan origination fees, which is going to be a bulk of it, home inspection, appraisal, again, any funds that you have to come in with in addition to your down payment is what is considered to be a closing cost. Now, this is important because a lot of people don't consider closing costs when they're buying a property. They just think it's the down payment, but that is not always the case. And for a quick review again, closing costs are typically going to cost anywhere from 1% to 3% of the purchase price of a home. So if you're buying a $300,000 home, for example, your closing costs can be anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000. It really just depends on your lender, depends on the type of loan you're getting, so on and so forth. So when you're buying a house and you want the seller to contribute to at least pay for all or some of your closing costs, there are a couple things to consider. Number one is competition on a property. So if you're trying to get a property that 5 other buyers are putting in offers on as well, then it's not really going to work in your benefit to ask for closing costs to be covered, because that is just less money that the seller is going to end up getting. Because even though you might give them their full asking price, you still have to deduct the amount of closing costs that you're asking for. So if you're asking for $5,000 in closing costs, that's going to be $5,000 less for the seller. Now, a way that you can kind of mitigate that is to make an offer, say $5,000 above the asking price, and that allows the seller to say, okay, well, even though they're asking for closing costs, I'm still able to net the amount of money. And then for you as a buyer, that extra $5,000 isn't going to be much a difference when it comes down to your monthly payment. And then also by getting the closing costs, it is allowing you to keep some money in your pocket for the long term, and you can use that money to pay down your loan in the long term. Another thing that you want to consider when asking for closing costs is, are you going to be asking for a bunch of repairs as well, or credit for repairs? Because again, if you're going to be asking for a lot of repairs or asking for a credit for repairs, that is going to hinder your opportunity to get funds for closing costs. And just remember, as a buyer, yes, you want to make it a win for you, but you also want to make it a win-win situation for the seller as well. A lot of sellers are going to be willing to work with you as long as you're willing to work with them. So those are just a couple things to consider and a couple strategies that you might want to put into place when you're buying a home and you want to get closing costs covered from a seller. Another bonus thing is ask your lender if they're willing to contribute anything towards your closing costs, because again, most of your closing costs is going to come from fees from the lender. So ask if they're willing to go ahead and put some money towards your closing costs as well. A lot of lenders will be willing to do it, especially if it's a good property. This just happened to one of my clients recently, where they're in escrow, and that closing costs were a bit more than what they were anticipating. So the lender said, okay, well, hey, look, we apologize. We'll go ahead and we'll put up X amount of money towards your closing costs to help you out. And that in addition to having the seller cover all their closing costs. So this buyer really made out good for this purchase. So those are just a couple things to consider. If you have any questions, please reach out. Let me know. I'm here to help however I can. And until next Friday, I'll talk to y'all soon.